Thank you all for being here. My name is Moni Vargas, and I am the creative director for Breakthrough US. It is really exciting to see all of you today, and this is the first time we're really taking these panels globally in this manner. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a quick centering mindfulness, just breathing exercise until everyone joins in. We had quite a few people sign up, over 100 folks from around the world. So just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to log in. So if you don't mind just sitting nice and tall in your seat, tall and yet relaxed. So just really extend your spine, and let's all close our eyes. You can tuck your chin just a little bit, just slightly. And we're going to take some inhales all the way in and exhale completely. And you can count to 6 as you inhale. And exhale for 6 seconds. Now you're going to inhale as deeply as you can, inhaling gratitude. Exhale. You're going to inhale again. You're going to inhale courage and exhale. I'm going to inhale. Let's exhale completely. All right, so let's now open our eyes. And I'm going to take just a few moments to tell you what we're going to cover today. So we're going to begin with a brief introduction of our panel. We're going to show you a couple of videos. One is features the work that we're doing in Breakthrough US currently, and the other is a video that showcases the work of Breakthrough India. As I'll tell you more about both organizations in a bit. We're going to engage in the topics within panel discussion. We're going to explore creative ways and practices that we are adjusting to fit to the moment of COVID-19 that we're all experiencing around the world right now. And then we're going to open it up for questions. If you do have questions throughout the panel, because we'll be here for about an hour, please feel free to send them to Breakthrough US via chat. So you can send those questions directly to Breakthrough US, and that way we can, they'll send those questions to me. And yeah, and then we're going to have a lively discussion. So if there's anyone who wants to join in and give us some feedback or some insights, or even share some of your own personal stories, where we would be happy to hear that. So I just want to do a quick check. First of all, thank you all for joining us. This is really tremendous and a wonderful opportunity to engage in these conversations. We're all over the world right now. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I hope that this really finds you all healthy and in good spirits, considering what we're all experiencing right now in this moment in time. And we're going to begin. I'm going to tell you about Breakthrough US. In case you don't know, Breakthrough is a past Skoll awardee, Skoll Foundation awardee. So We are a global human rights organization with a 20-year history of using media, arts, and tech to advance gender equity and promote human rights while sparking radical cultural change, both in the US and in India. And a little bit about me. I worked as a filmmaker in the arts for about 20 years. And at Breakthrough, I lead our US programs. And the main one is a multimedia initiative comprised of a documentary series featuring the stories of girls and gender expansive youth of color, ages 14 to 24 from across the country, Puerto Rico, Alaska, and Hawaii. We've partnered with local organizations to build solidarity between movements and really expand platforms to support and amplify the work of youth artists, activists, and leaders. And it's a real honor to share this moment with all of you. So I am going to introduce all of our panelists. And first I'd like to introduce Noina. From our Delhi office, and she's my Indian counterpart. Go ahead and introduce yourself. So this is going to be a time for you to just tell us more about you and the work that you do.
Okay, my name is Noyona or Noina. I work from Delhi office of Breakthrough. I work with Breakthrough India. I'm the director program based out of Delhi, and in Breakthrough we work with 400,000 adolescents in India. We also work with 12,000 factory workers around the national capital region. And I'm the person who looks into this work. This is my 21st year in the development sector, so it's been a long journey. I love it, and I have been working for Breakthrough for about 1.5 years now. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Nayana. So also joining us is a playwright and performer from New York City, well, who lives now in New York City, and it's Wazina Zondan.
Should I just say a quick thing?
Yes, tell us about your work.
Hi everyone, I'm Wazina. I usually identify myself as an Afghan raised in New York City. I am a sexuality educator and trainer for the last many years, and also now for the last many years. I did not expect it to be this way, but it is a gift. I am the co-creator and co-performer of Coming Out Muslim, Radical Acts of Love, which is a personal storytelling performance, sharing and making visible the very often invisible identities of being queer and Muslim. It is storytelling, story collecting, and I'm excited to say more about kind of the intention behind it that has continued to propel us for the last 8 years.
Thank you, Wazina. Also joining us is Lauren Stockman-Brown. She is a youth storyteller that we'll also feature in our documentary series. Lauren, please tell us about your work.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Lauren. I'm super excited to be here. I'm the founder of the My Colorful Nana Project, which is a project about Black hair and identity in general. We talk a lot about thinking generously and understanding social advocacy issues that are typically on the margins. I'm a writer and advocate of all social justice issues, and I'm super excited to share our story.
Beautiful. And then just a quick nod to our Breakthrough US team. We have Priya Kavam, who's hosting us today, Jason Fluge, and we have Alex, who I believe is still on. So it's really wonderful to see you all here. Oh, there's actually more and more pages. Wow, there's so many people here. Hi, everyone. I'm just seeing all of the incredible pages of folks who have signed in. I only thought it was one page, so that's super exciting. So I also would like to say hello to Tomiko Young and Sherry Young. Tomiko is also one of our youth storytellers, and Tomiko, just if you could just tell us a little bit about you as well.
Hi, I'm Tomiko Young. I'm from Los Angeles, and this is my mom, Sherry Young. I'm 15 years old, and I was raised in LA. I am a dancer. I love dancing, and I also want to have a voice for young people of color like myself.
So we're going to see just a quick 1-minute trailer. This is a much longer project, obviously, but this will just give you a taste of the types of stories that we're covering and we're featuring on this series.
I would see in the media tall blonde women with light blue eyes, but I'm not like that at all. I'm very short, my hair curls, I have brown eyes. I can be a Dominican American and go braless and have natural hair and be these thousands of things because that's just who I am.
As a teenager, it can be really hard. We have these pressures and these expectations, but at the end of the day, whatever is best for me, I'm gonna do.
I'm not a man and I'm not a woman. I am something completely different.
Our stories need to be heard, and representation matters within the media.
Gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation, and race and class, those things tangle with each other and they dance and sum up who I am.
It's really special to be heard and to have a space to speak out.
Breakthrough India has been in existence for about 20 years. We just completed 20 years in the year 1999. So what we do is that we use storytelling to bring you in face to face with another reality, and we try to make you believe that another reality is possible. We believe that you can have an aspirational life. You can be whatever you want to be. So the video that I'm going to show you is an animated video in which we are talking about a friendship between a boy and a girl, which almost is like kind of impossible in India. There is the popular culture that constantly tell you about that boys and girls cannot be friends. So I think that's the same in Hollywood too, right? So that's what we are going to watch today.
मैं हूँ पिंकी
और मैं हूँ पंकज। हम दोनों क्लास 10th में पढ़ते हैं।
पंकज मेरा बेस्ट फ्रेंड है, हम पड़ोस में रहते हैं। जब हम छोटे थे ना, तब से इसे जानती हूँ। अब बड़ा हो गया है, लेकिन है वैसे का वैसा, सारा टाइम बक।
दोस्तों, ये तो पैदा ही टीचर हुई थी, पूरा दिन डांट डपट। आज भी वैसी है, ये मत करो, वो मत करो, ये सही है, वो गलत है।
अच्छा, ऐसा क्या बोला मैंने?
तू तो कभी किसी को कुछ कहती ही नहीं है। वो तो बस पड़ोस के सारे लड़के तुझसे ऐसे ही डरते हैं।
काम ही ऐसा करते हैं।
काम करते तो बेचारे डरते ही क्यों, वो तो काम करते ही नहीं है।
अच्छा, तो तू मेरी खिल्ली उड़ा रहा है।
ये देखो, खूंखार टीचर।
अच्छा, तो मैं कुछ बोलूं ही ना। घर पे पड़े पड़े मूंगफली खाते रहोगे तो जरूर बोलूंगी।
अरे तुझे औरों से क्या लेना?
क्यों नहीं लेना? सर पे चढ़ा रखा है लड़कों को, लड़के ना हुए बाजरे की कल की हो गए।
अरे जब बड़े हो जाएंगे तब काम करेंगे ना।
और तब तक घर में भी तो हाथ बटा सकते हो ना। मेहमान आए तो चाय पानी दे सकते हो, कभी बाबूजी को ला रोटी दे सकते हो, माँ और बहन के साथ पानी ला सकते हो। कितने छोटे छोटे काम होते हैं घर में, तू भी तो करता है।
मैं तो स्पेशल लड़का हूँ, नाम है पंकज।
कोई स्पेशल वेशल नहीं है, तू नॉर्मल है।
मुझे तो खुद ही लगता है मैं नॉर्मल हूँ, पर बाकी के सब लड़के मजाक उड़ाते हैं मेरा।
उड़ाने दे, ना खुद करना ना औरों को करने देना।
तू चिंता मत कर पिंकी, मैं उनकी बातों का बुरा नहीं मानता। मुझे नहीं लगता कि मैं गलत करता हूँ। लड़कों को घर के काम करने चाहिए, बिना हिचक, बिना शर्म। इससे वो कोई कम लड़के नहीं हो जाते। क्यों, ठीक है ना लड़की?
चल इसी बात पे दे ताली।
आपका घर आपका अपना है, चाहे आप लड़के हों या लड़की। घर के छोटे बड़े कामों में दोनों को ही मिलजुल कर हाथ बटाना चाहिए। इससे कोई कम या ज्यादा नहीं हो जाता। साथ साथ काम करने से तो प्यार बढ़ता ही है। अगर घर वाले न समझे तो उन्हें प्यार से समझाएं। अपनी सोच, अपनी जिंदगी को नया रुख दें। आपकी जिंदगी आपकी अपनी है।
That's what we do. We try and bring a new normal. We try and say that, you know, this is normal too. That's what it is all about.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right into some of our our conversation with the panel. So we're going to, our first topics really, we're going to explore the significance of having media makers reflect the communities they serve and represent. And this is a topic that's been discussed quite a few, or quite a bit lately, and it's termed, you know, the idea of decolonizing media. And I'm just kind of curious how each of you advance the meaningful and nuanced representation in the work that you produce and in the programs that you lead. And we'll start, we'll start with Narayana. I think that's, this is a great topic for you to lead on right now.
You would like me to address the question of how we are going about with the work in the... Oh, I can't hear you, Moni.
What are some of the traditional norms around caste and gender that you consider when you're working with 400,000 adolescents in India? I mean, that's across many cultures within India. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, great. I think that's a great question, and we at Breakthrough are all the time concerned about changing the traditional norms, and traditional norms actually makes, we believe that the possibilities that you have are often get the barriers of those possibilities are often through the traditional norms and boundaries that are set in front of us. So, so some of the things that we are talking about in Breakthrough is definitely gender. We talk about girls and women, and we believe that we want to, at Breakthrough, we want to make violence and discrimination unacceptable for everyone. That's the goal that we work towards. So when we work with 400,000 adolescents, we believe that this is the generation that can work to change the norm towards a violence-free world. And we believe that a violence-free world is possible, and it is possible by making it possible for everybody to reach their fullest potential. This is what I meant by an aspirational living. And of course, caste is a reality in India. And when we work in various different areas, we have seen that how caste actually brings additional barriers, such as your mobility gets restricted, whether what are the kind of financial resources you have get restricted, whether you can get access to a water body, whether you can get access to other forms of resources or even social development schemes. These are like additional barriers that come into your life when you from a so-called lower caste. And Breakthrough is very mindful of that. So when we look at the baselines that we do research when we get into an area, and we try and look at the areas that are most marginalized. And many a times these researches actually show that the areas that have so-called lower castes have a higher rate of early marriage among girls. Girls drop out of schools much earlier. Even boys, we have seen that around the age of 15, boys from poor families are often pushed into work, and girls from poor families are pushed into marriage. Their castes actually create an interesting, if I can use the word interesting, because it's obviously a very difficult thing to say, that caste actually brings in additional possibilities of violence against girls, which is why girls become even more vulnerable to early marriage. And so they completely miss out on chances of achieving their fullest potential. So those are some of the things that we keep in mind as we work with girls and in the rural areas. And of course, we believe that we have to work with boys, because unless you work with boys, there is no way that you are going to change the gender norms in the world. So I'll just give you an example. In our recent survey, in one of the states of India, which is Hindi speaking and in the northern belt, we found that only 7% of girls believe that if they're sexually harassed on the way to school, which is called eve teasing in India. So if they're harassed on the way to school, that's a fair enough reason for their parents to take them out of school. Yeah, only 7%. However, when we ask the same question to boys, 1 in 4 boys believed that girls should be taken out of school if they're sexually harassed on the way to school. So that actually shows the great need of working with boys around changing their mindset, whereas we know that boys are involved in sexual harassment, and they actually think that it's innocent, it's not a big deal. But at the same time, when you ask them whether that can be used to take a girl out of school, they are saying yes. So these are some of the contradictory norms that play around, and we try and work on them. I would stop there, Moni.
Thank you so much, Nayana. We'll move on to Lauren. So Lauren, tell us why you began My Colorful Nana project. What's its significance to you and to your audience? And you're a college student right now at NYU, correct?
I actually just graduated.
Oh, good. Congrats. Okay.
Thank you. So this is always super fun to get into, because I never predicted that the My Colorful Nana project would get to where it is now, which is super exciting. So it initially started as just a school project. I was in an oral history course, and for my final project, I decided to use this picture of my grandmother from 1963, and she had this huge afro. And it was such a moment that was so inspiring to me, because I've always had difficulties with my own hair. But I never had the language to express what I was feeling. And I never even knew that there was this unique oppression on Black hair. So I created the project, My Colorful Nana. I interviewed 4 different girls. I interviewed a white girl from Texas, a woman who's half Thai, half Black, someone who's Black, and another woman who's Black. And it was incredible. Like, every story was different, no matter how you identified. Your level of knowledge was different. And I realized that there was just an absence there that was super exciting to me. So the significance of My Colorful Nana to me is that initially it was just a cathartic space for me to explore any insecurities I had, or this topic that relates to everything, because it's so expansive. And then for my audience, I think that the significance is that it provides a voice and a space, a safe space to discuss topics like Black hair that don't get, well, I guess now they get more attention in the media, but at the time when I was growing up, when you were growing up, there was no conversation on this issue. And again, I think it's really important to say that it relates to everything: gender politics, race politics, any societal issue, and I think that's what makes it really fascinating.
Yes, I agree. Couldn't agree more. And now laws are being passed around.
Yes.
Just where you cannot discriminate against hair, and which is, to me, is just crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that it has to be a law, right?
Yeah, there has to be a law, exactly. And then Sherry and Tamika, we'll talk about this later when we open it up. But because Sherry is also, she's a hairdresser here in LA, but she's much more than that. She's a media maker and a mom and so much. So we'll talk about that later. But For Wazina, my question is, why was it important for you to write about your sexual identity as a Muslim woman? And what really prompted you to perform this, this theater piece in front of an audience? And what is that like, feeling represented and creating that representation for your community?
Thank you. So I wasn't thinking of this initially when I had my, thinking about what I could be asked. And but similar to Lauren, it was an unexpected and unintentional kind of entrance into performance. Of course, I know gender is always performance. As someone who was raised as a girl child and as a woman in this world. And similarly to Lauren's, the personal is political. While I may not have thought of and I come from that generation of feminism that thinks of that, but while I may not always think of my identities, like just day to day, like being a woman, being queer, being Muslim, being Afghan, daughter of immigrants, they may just be my regular identities, but they are politicized identities in our society where laws are made to control, restrict, vilify, erase, dismiss, sometimes even allow for the murder and like all of that, right? So, but coming out Muslim and writing about this was a way for me to create, and with my counterpart Tana, and I must name Tana Tuligialo, who is a Liberian woman who was a convert or revert to Islam. And so we came together almost 10 years ago when we met through work, but we were talking about our Muslim experiences, which are very different, and also needed to say that there's no singular Muslim identity. And for so often when we would talk about being queer Muslims, we were told we were like wrong, bad, no good. We were like the bad Muslims. And for so many, but then when you really looked around, like thinking about living in New York City and growing up in New York City, when we had no words for Islamophobia, and then after 9/11 there was a word, Islamophobia. It's always been around. Nobody said those Muslims couldn't be Muslim, the ones who do terrible things. However, as queer Muslims, we're told that we don't exist, that we must reconcile our identities because they can't exist in one place. So for us, it was about creating counter narrative. It was about collective healing. It was about dismantling some of the isolation we experience for many queer Muslims who feel like they just can't be themselves, whether they're at home or in their LGBT spaces. For me, it was very important to kind of name myself as a person of faith within LGBT spaces, where a lot of times faith has been used to tell queer folks that you can't exist, or gender expansive people that you can't be your full self. And faith is so important to so many of us, and sometimes it gets used against us. So we wanted to heal that. And to talk about being a sexual person as a queer person was very important to kind of push back on the shame that so many of us are taught, that's reinforced both from our own, even within our families, knowingly and unknowingly, that being a sexual person, regardless of your sexual orientation, is not always talked about. So what else? And to do it live, there's something about the revival of humanity. I'm not a trained performer, so if anybody's ever seen it, they know that there's something really raw about flubbing your words and crying and laughing with the people who are your audience members. You're sharing collective human space. It's the heart work. And so I get to be witness, but also I get to witness the audience at every single moment who is kind of laughing or crying or having an aha moment alongside of me. And so those are many of the reasons, and I don't feel like the queer and LGBT media folks who are out there were never my role models. And so I think for Tana and myself, we were trying to create our own role models. And if where possible, offer something to other folks who are struggling with the same kind of identity straddling.
Yes, and thank you for that. And it leads right into the work that we're doing at Breakthrough US with our documentary. The working title is Her Stories, and really the reason why we have committed ourselves to filming the stories of young girls of color across the US is because there is often so little representation of their everyday lives in media and in TV, and not just in narrative work, but also in documentary work. So what we have found through our research and all of our partnerships with all of these incredible organizations across the country that Priya actually leads on, is that these young people are leaders within their communities. They have incredible creative practices that are not only very insightful, but they're also leading other youth to participate and be active within their communities and within their expression. And unfortunately, a lot, when we do hear about girls of color in this country, you often hear about the statistics that you don't want to hear about, the statistics that further marginalizes them and us. It's funny, is like I could be all of their mothers. But I still identify. There's a person in me that was 12 and had no one to look at that looked like me, or that had my background. I'm Colombian. I was born there. I came to this country as an immigrant, and I had no type of representation. So to hear these young women, girls, and gender expansive. That's another thing that we're really keen on, is getting a wide range of representations, of a wide range of story themes, a wide range of crews. All of our crews are reflect. So the people who are shooting and doing all of the work behind the scenes reflect the communities that we're serving. And that's intentional, and it has to be intentional. Otherwise, you're going to basically hire the same people that are always hired for these types of documentaries and media projects. We just need to create that space so that we can all be inspired by the work that these young people are doing, and they're really leading the way. They're leading the way in when it comes to climate change. They're leading the way when it comes to gender identity. They're leading the way in so many aspects of our of the issues that we're all affected by. And I so appreciate it, and I learn every time I have these interviews and that I that we're filming, that we're on the ground filming. That leads to the type of media that we're all producing, could you tell us a little bit about, because media comes in many different forms. It's not just TV and film. And then there's also different types of stories within that. So Noyona, can you tell me what basically, what are the types of campaigns that you've seen to be the most effective for Breakthrough India?
Thank you for that question. First, if I talk about what are the kind of storytelling that we use quite a few types of storytelling. So we have used music videos. We started with a music video telling the story of a woman who refused to live a life of violence, and she got out and made a life for herself as a taxi driver. But in the music video, she's shown as a truck driver driving across the deserts of Rajasthan. That's our first video 20 years ago where we started. So we have worked on music videos from time to time, and music videos it was on top of the charts for many, many weeks. So we have used those. We have also used docu-style stories, which I have shared links with the US office, which is going to be shared with everybody. So we have used docu-style stories from Haryana. We have used stories of personal change in people and then made films out of them. For example, one of our co-workers actually beat a plate when his daughter was born. It is not a common practice in northern India. In northern India villages, when you have a boy, you beat a plate to let everybody know that there is some happy news in your house. But when a daughter is born, there is completely a hush, a silence. And one of our co-workers actually beat a plate. So we made a film out of that, which became very popular. And when I have gone from villages to villages of a North Indian state called Haryana, I have looked at girls who have felt very emotional looking at that video. And they said that someday we want that to happen in our houses too. And it has actually become a campaign. It has become a campaign for some of the district governments who now make sure that for every girl born in their districts, there is a beating of the plate. This is very important in the context of Haryana, where the sex ratio is one of the lowest in the country. So there are about 846 girls per 1,000 boys. So that's some of the things that we do. And so on to your question of what works the best. I think many things work in various different contexts. At times when we work on comic building workshops, comic writing workshops, and when children go back to their villages and they make comics about their own situations, we actually get to see how they look at their situations through a comic strip. And those become into posters, they're put up in the villages for everyone to see. I think one of the things that I have realized working in storytelling is this, that when you talk specifically about what to do, it resonates much better. For example, if you think of our Bell Bajao or Ring the Bell campaign, it had a clear call to action. It said, what do you have to do to break a moment of violence? It asked you to go ahead and ring the bell. And it also told you that what you can do by ringing the bell, you can ask for a cup of sugar, you can ask for some water, you can ask to make a phone call. So there was a clear call to action. I have liked almost all the videos. I'm a big Breakthrough fan, so I like all the videos of Breakthrough, but I also believe that whenever there is a clear call to action, that's when it works the best. Yeah.
Thank you, Noyana. So, Lauren, I know that you use a few different types of storytelling tools. You use live podcasting and writing. What do you feel that one is more effective than the other? And how are you adjusting? And this is a new, we have to also acknowledge the fact that so much of our work now is going to be affected by this worldwide quarantine or social distancing that we're all experiencing. For us, for example, for the project that we're currently working on, we have shifted to doing more work on video conferencing. We do have all of your emails, and we will be sending a follow-up email to everyone, just with a lot of links and media. But then we'll also send you an opportunity to sign up for more of these, where we'll be talking with youth and youth leaders and also media leaders here in the US and around the world. But that said, we obviously have to pivot. We had to pivot to just adjust to the times that we're living in. So Lauren, what do you find to be, effective? And then how are you pivoting now that we're experiencing COVID-19?
Yeah, super great question. I'd say the two biggest things that have changed or been affected are communication and connection in terms of podcasting. So it's so different when you get to go into the studio, sit down and talk to someone one-on-one, and there's that human element involved in everything you talk about. It allows someone to be more vulnerable, get to know you better. You can hear it when you listen back to each episode. So then there's the COVID-19 crisis, and what that affects is that now we're going virtual. So the last interview we did for season 2, episode 1, was virtual. So it was through Zoom. And it was really difficult for me as an interviewer too to pick up on, okay, so is your thought finished or is that the Wi-Fi? Like, so, and that really does play a huge role creatively and emotionally in trying to make someone and yourself feel safe talking about topics that are really difficult and can be triggering. But I'd say that moving forward, again, like I have a huge team behind me that I'm super grateful for. And they've been super effective in staying proactive and communicating on what I can do better, on what the person who's being interviewed can do better. And I think keeping up with that communication and connection throughout this process is what are some tools that I can take into when we're face to face again. So yeah, so it's been a bump in the road, but I'm learning from it, and that's what's been super cool these last few months.
Thank you. And Wazina, so, as an educator and as a performer, what are you doing to adjust? And along those lines, tell us about some of the young people that you work with and how they've inspired you in your work, and how you are adjusting to maybe teaching or basically, what has come up for you in the last few weeks?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing I'll say is that as an educator and as someone who's doing coming out Muslim, a lot of times, in the education world and as teachers particularly, we're told like you have to be like separate, like you shouldn't be taught, like live in these silos, and which I totally understand the reasons for that for many of us. Especially if you're a queer teacher, there's a lot, for many people, it's encouraged you should not be out. It's not safe federally, and depending on what state or even city you live in, you could be fired for being out or being queer, or depending or rumored that you are somebody who is not non-cis or non-heterosexual. So, I mean, these are real things, so I don't want to dismiss real things. But for me, teaching in New York City, I had the privilege, and also I'm a sexuality educator, and I asked students to be vulnerable and open and honest and share and ask questions about, sexuality holistically. I don't just talk about junk and body parts. It's not just disease prevention, it's self-esteem, gender expression, pleasure, what do you like to do? Pleasure in that way. And also we can talk about pleasure in other ways. So for me, I always wanted to make sure that I did not live in those silos, and coming out Muslim was about dismantling the silos that we live in. And so I always told my students about this project I work on. And we were able to bring in storytelling and also bring in, their real life experiences as legitimate, factual, as part of the academic work, right? So that was so for me, I always wanted to bring that in, and also allow them to be able to share and talk about how shame and faith, or am I a person of faith anymore, critically be literate around the messages they are receiving in their life. This year, I am not in the classroom, so I could do more coming out Muslim related work. But just yesterday, I was on a Zoom call, or actually a Google Hangout, with my former students, talking about my work as a storyteller and one of the reasons why I'm not in the classroom with them. And so they've been doing podcasts and storytelling in part of their English lit class. And so I was able to talk with them about how to, why it processes. I would struggle if I was teaching right now via video conference. I would, I love that human connection as the type of learner that I am, right? I want that human piece, but it also allows me to be with them. Allows for us to draw in on the knowledge and guest speakers from across the globe. Like, we are here together with as many numbers of people as we have on this video chat. I would never, we would not meet actually otherwise. So I'm going to look for the gifts in this moment. You know, there's like I reminded my partner the other day, like alhamdulillah when things are up and alhamdulillah when things are down, like thank God for both. So that's one piece. And I think the other question you had, shifting, I think you're, I guess I'll just leave it at that for now. Then we can come back to other questions.
So actually, this is a perfect time. I would love to open this up to questions from the audience. And we have one already from Camille, who is one of our board members. We love Camille. Hi, Camille. And her question is, you know, what ways can we strategically link important stories from our communities to this current pandemic for media makers and producers? And part of that is the importance of those at risk for domestic violence during lockdowns. So, you know, it's interesting you say that, Camille, because that has been something that has, we've already been discussing in the US office as a rapid response, that we need to create a rapid response campaign around it. Everything from sharing hotlines to our audience that are national hotlines. And then also there is, I recently read that one of the ways that women from around the world are dealing with this is to go to pharmacies and there's a code word that is being used since pharmacies are, you know, are considered essential places. And instead of saying I need a mask, they say I need a mask, you know, number 9, and that's an alert to the pharmacists that this person is being abused at home, and then to call for reinforcement and to call for help. So I think right now it's really important for all of us to not only disseminate this type of information so that it's accessible, but it is important to create you know, this almost like a global network of resources that, you know, folks can access at this time, because it's not just, you know, it's not just abuse for adults, but it's also children are also susceptible to more abuse during this time, and that's been across the world. We've seen this spike up quickly in the last couple of weeks. So thank you for that. And then are there any, there was a great campaign that was done in India that's been resurfaced, and we are also getting the word out. So Nayona, could you speak about that as well? About basically intervening when you hear, when maybe you're hearing, it's called Ring the Bell. And when you hear perhaps your neighbor or disturbance in your, where you live, things that you can do to interrupt this type of behavior. And I'll let you go on with that, Nayona.
Yeah, thanks, Moni. I spoke about Bell Bajao or Ring the Bell briefly in my previous bit. But Bell Bajao is a campaign which has really caught imagination of people, because it talks about a clear call to action. It actually flips the story by saying that violence is not a personal issue. It is not between two people when somebody is being violent. They cannot say that, oh, it's a private matter between two people, and you can't really excuse yourself as a bystander. So Breakthrough has always worked around bystander intervention, and we are happy that other organizations are now picking up the campaign and using the code saying Bell Bajao or Ring the Bell when you hear something like a domestic abuse or domestic violence issue going on in somebody else's house. And like I said, that it says when you break a moment of violence, it actually lets the abuser think through his action. I'm saying his, and the abused or the person who's being who's facing the physical violence or verbal violence or emotional verbal violence, which you can hear. So she can also get a chance to lock herself in a room and then call up somebody for help or other things. So you basically break a moment of violence, which can escalate into something very, very, very dangerous. So that's where you intervene. This is a campaign which has gone to 6 countries before. It has been shared by millions of people, have watched by millions of people. The then UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had also made a call to action around it, saying that ring the bell. So we think this is one time when we need to really raise this issue again and bring it to the fore.
And I would really love to add that having people participate or interrupt, do the work of, interrupting this violent experience also allows for us to not always rely on police. In the US specifically, knowing that for us to call the law enforcement on our neighbors, on the families that are in our buildings, that could impacts folks who are documented or undocumented fears of that. We know that depending on who you are and what you look like and your skin color specifically, how violence escalates is people die for no reason. And actually the real reason is racism, actually, and white supremacy. But when we're trying to do something good to interrupt it, so I think it also allows us as in this moment, especially when we think about COVID, how are we going to be mutually responsible for our communities? How are we going to be having conversations? And as families who are, if we have the opportunity to be able to have these intimate conversations with our children, maybe this is the time to have this intergenerational dialogue around, if it is intimate partner violence, but also the stories that we have inherited from our, living and past ancestors and people in our lives. So I think there's an opportunity to also be sharing and, and talking this way.
Yeah.
Sorry, Moni, can I add something?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, during the times of pandemics, we also have to be very mindful of additional vulnerability. So if you are from a family which is poor and you are dependent on your daily wage or your daily labor, or you are based out of a rural community wherein you waited for your husband to send you back money from an urban area, and those areas have been closed in a lockdown situation in India, which we are experiencing at this point in time. We have firsthand 800 families which are now facing a situation of no food in their homes. So what happens is that we know how the gender then plays. So the woman in the family or the girl in the family gets to eat the minimum, or does not even get to eat. So there are additional vulnerabilities that come in play. So they become more vulnerable to even more number of diseases. So that's something that we all must keep in mind, to look out for communities with additional vulnerabilities. So we should not just think of it as like this one layer or one size fits all.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nayana, so we've had someone from the audience ask if you could speak about just the narratives of girls and religious minorities within India, and how that is a bit different, perhaps. So within religious minorities in India, what are girls experiencing?
So in the areas that we are working in, these are mostly very poverty-stricken areas, and we also work in Haryana, which is not so poor, but going by Indian standards, and that is mostly majority community area, very, very few religious minorities that we get to work with there. But of course, we work with girls from religious minority groups. One of the interesting thing that I'm going to point out here is that JPAL, the RCT, the groups that do randomized control trials, and Abhijit Banerjee won the Nobel this year, so it has become quite famous. So JPAL did an RCT on us, which showed that the attitude change in the adolescents that go through our program, irrespective of the families that they come from, there is a huge attitude shift. It almost neutralizes the family's influence. So even if you're coming from a very regressive or a very conservative family, that gets neutralized by the method through which Breakthrough works with adolescent girls and boys. That's a huge thing that we get. So now on the stories, we also have lots of stories of girls and boys from religious minority communities who have negotiated later age of marriage. They have negotiated a playground for their people, and also their families have stood by them. So yes, we get to see girls who, and I'm just remembering one of the girl who has negotiated not wearing a hijab, but it's her own choice. It's her choice to not to wear a hijab. We do not put it's a good thing or a bad thing into it. But she decided that she doesn't want to wear a hijab, and her mother was supporting her and the father was not supporting her. But they could actually negotiate. I think somebody talked about, Wazina talked about intergenerational dialogue. So that's what is happening in the families with our kind of intervention. So that's my response to that.
Thank you about that. And I'm not sure if there's any other Her Stories participants, but I would love to just, because we're so lucky to have Sherry and Tomiko here with us, if we just want to hear about not only as a parent, but yeah, and as a child, how representation matters to you, and really what it means to find media that reflects your multi-ethnic upbringing and cultural background.
Okay, you want to start? I can start. Yeah. So I'm 43 now, and I'm Filipino. So growing up in the 80s, early 90s, I did not see anyone who was Filipino in the media. Maybe one. It was called Troop Beverly Hills, and this one Filipino girl, she played maybe the president's rich daughter, which was, at that time, Marcos was the dictator in the Philippines. So it was like, okay, she's Asian, but she's on this different type of class. It wasn't something that I related to. And actually, I know her now. That actress is actually the Filipino Women's Center. She's actually one of the founders of that organization now, which does help women of domestic violence in workers. So it's kind of like, wow, like these women now that I grew up watching are totally taking these different roles now because they want to show women what they can do now. And with Breakthrough, this is an amazing organization. Listening to every woman on this panel has given me more insight in what I need to do as someone who doesn't really speak that much. Growing up being Filipino, it's like you speak when you're spoken to. You don't really have a voice unless you are asked to speak. So for me, being Filipino, raising my two girls that are half Black, I own a hair salon that's called the Art From Studio here in LA. And growing up in LA, I've worked with all textures of hair. That's just being Filipino. You have everyone in your family that has basically a lot of different types of texture. My husband has very, very curly hair. And so with my kids, they're somewhere in between of having wavy hair and then really curly hair. So even before I met my husband, who's Black, I've been in tune with different types of texture of hair. And hair is definitely something that people identify with. You try to identify with someone who has the same type of hair, but me being Filipino and having wavy hair, you know, women or men who are Black don't trust me in that sense now. But knowing my background and how I educate myself within different types of hair, it's like a seamstress. They're in tune with different types of textures of hair. And with my daughter growing up, she didn't feel like she belonged anywhere, because in the community that she's in, there's not a lot of interracial kids growing up. So I'm here to tell my kids, like, it's okay. It's you're different. This is something that represents you as being a person that's not just behind the hair, but it's a part of you. And it's okay to show it. It's okay to touch it, to feel it, to have someone tell you it's okay and it looks beautiful. So there are certain different things and a stigma that even my youngest child, when my father would say, "Oh man, your hair is crazy." So in her head, it's like, am I crazy? Is this me? So the identification with different types of hair does really put this identity, you know, and for us as women now, as being older, it's like, you know, you have to change things, right? To be the inspiration for the younger kids to say, like, my hair is beautiful. That is a part of me. It's a statement that I want to make in order to move forward in my society, in the people that are around me that do look different and they want to educate. I'm here to educate as a hairstylist about other people's hair and their own hair. So when I do work at my salon, everybody in our chair as hairstylists that come into my team, we all have to educate each other and one another on different types of textures. And that's what my team is here at the Art Form Studio.
Thank you for that, Sherry. So I'm very aware that we are past our time. It's we're about 7 minutes over, but I want to just make sure that we have everyone's questions and addressed. And if there's anything else that our panelists would like to share that we haven't shared already, please let me know. And I am also happy to. We will be in touch with all of you via email after this with everyone's links to their work, not only their work in their professional life, but also their personal work and their own personal projects. And if there's anything that you would like us to add to the notes as an audience member, please leave it on our chat. These notes will then be shared with the Skoll community, and it's an incredible resource because everyone has access to it. Anyone can really benefit from the work and the research and the findings that so many folks around the world are embarking in within not just girls and women's rights, but human rights, climate change, and so many other worthwhile topics. So thank you all for being here. I just want to leave this open real quick. If you need to leave, I understand. But if any of the panelists have anything else that you would like to share, please do so now. And just you can raise your hand. Anyone else? No, you're not?
No, I don't have anything to say. I think Vazina and I are shaking our heads.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your participation and your time and your energy. I want to acknowledge and thank our U.S. team. So all the way from Shohini, who already had an amazing panel earlier this week with Skoll. She is our CEO. Priya, who has been instrumental in making all of this happen. Mark Skoll, who's he's been with the organization, it seems like forever, I think in the last 15 years. And we have Hari, who is our content strategist, and Jason, who leads on operations, and Alex, who just joined us about 2 weeks ago. And Alex is our editor and another producer on our project. I'm Leader, I haven't seen Leader on here, but I am so happy that we were able to really set this off. And thank you all for being a part of it. I really appreciate your time and all the work that everyone is doing during this very stressful time. And you'll also have my email. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or any inputs. We're really open to having that communication open between all of us. Thank you once again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Moni. Thank you, everyone.